Yes, so our next speaker is a former colleague of ours at the CTU, and it's Mr. Rodney Taylor, who is the chair, as I said, of ISOC in Barbados. Rodney, however, is also the director of the Barbados Data Processing Department, which is the central IT services department for the Government of Barbados. And his professional experience includes management of information systems in Barbados's Ministry of Foreign Affairs and development of ICT policies and strategies for Caribbean governments, Caribbean representation in regional and national fora, and like IGF and ICANN and Caribbean and others, which he did while a member of the CTU Secretariat for about 4 years, where his official post at the CTU Secretariat at the time was the Business Development and Operations Manager, which was made possible through our Commonwealth Secretariat Technical Assistance Program. So Rodney's topic today is now coming to talk to us about Caribbean Internet governance and the importance of developing national Internet governance fora, national multi-stakeholder fora in the Caribbean. And he'll be able to talk from his experience in the CTU, from his experience as a member of the Barbados government, and from his experience as well in developing the first Barbados Internet Governance Forum as well. So let's welcome Rodney with
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Nigel, for that introduction. And it's an honor to be back here in the Bahamas. I was here a few months ago for the ITU's Global Regulators Conference. And I very much enjoyed my stay here, and I'm pleased to be back. As Nigel mentioned, I am chair of the Society Barbados chapter. I've been chair for just over a year. We had elections 3-4 weeks ago, and they decided I was doing a decent enough job and I should have a second term. The bylaws do limit the chairmanship to 2 years, so this will be my final year. But we have a very good executive in place, and we've been working with other chapters in the region to promote national ideas. So I'm happy to speak on that topic. The Internet Society is a global nonprofit organization. It has several chapters around the world, over 100 chapters. We're pleased that we're seeing the growth and development of chapters within the region. Trinidad and Tobago, I believe, we have had the first one in the region, in English-speaking Caribbean. And we established ours just over a year and a half. The vision of ISOC is that the internet is for everyone. So not just technical experts, not just persons who understand what IoT means or cloud. It's for everyone, for the non-public, as we say on this. And it tries to foster discussions on the internet and development of internet public policy from the perspective of, from that varied perspective. Its mission is to support and promote the development of the internet as a global technical infrastructure, a resource to enrich people's lives, and force for good in society. They've done a lot of work in the region, and in fact, this year in February launched a report Unleashing the Internet in the Caribbean, removing barriers to connectivity and stimulating access in the region. It was launched in Barbados at the Cave Hills campus of the University of the West Indies, and we had the fortunate pleasure of having the CEO and President of the Internet Society, Ms. Kathy Brown, there to launch and to engage with stakeholders, all levels of the university, the regulators, and so on, to discuss some of the findings. The report looks at the 11 stats within 11 Caribbean countries. I encourage you to read it. It is freely available online to the Internet Society's website. And I'm sure you can obtain a copy through CPU as well, perhaps. But in any case, it is widely available. The Internet Governance Forum, as many of you already know, is a forum for multi-stakeholder dialogue on public policy issues related to key elements of internet governance, such as sustainability, robustness, etc. This forum was established in 2006 by the United Nations, and it had an initial 5-year mandate that was extended. And actually, almost a year before this, the region itself, the Caribbean Internet Governance Forum, through the CPU, was established. That is now in its 13th year, and that was held in the BBI, I think in August this year. So the region predates our forum, the region predates the global forum that we take great pride in. And in terms of the importance of having national IGFs, now the global IGF it happens once a year. It is, as I mentioned, about this global forum to, for policymakers, the private sector, for entrepreneurs, etc., to discuss, present their views on how they would legislate policy. So, as a region, it is ineffective for us to attend these global forums without having some sort of preparatory process, without having an opportunity to discuss these issues from a national perspective and also from a regional perspective. Therefore, it makes sense logically to have an opportunity through national IGFs to see what issues are important to the country, whether it's Bahamas, Barbados, and Lucia. Let those issues feed into the regional process in the Caribbean Internet Governance Forum, and then into the wider region, which is the Latin American Caribbean Internet Governance Forum, and then into the global forum. That way, we actually have a better opportunity to consolidate the issues and to agree to lobby on which issues that we need to advance as a region. So we held our first forum in Barbados in June this year. It was the first in Barbados and the second in the English-speaking Caribbean because Trinidad had theirs in January as well. We participated remotely following the discussions. Theirs was for 1 day, ours was a 2-day discussion. And our theme was, we want to hear from you. So we encouraged the entire Barbadian population to attend. It was free of cost. And in fact, there are stipulations when getting support. First of all, for the forum to be acknowledged by the United Nations as an IGF, it has to follow certain stipulations. It has to be non-commercial, so it is not an IT conference. And even if you are receiving support and sponsorship of private entities, the presentations are not to be commercial. They need to be guided to the overall policy development initiatives or to add to the technical discussion of the forum. It has to be inclusive, it has to be bottom-up. It should not exclude any particular group, etc. And there's a process by which you apply to receive official acknowledgement and official support, including funding, including internet governance, forum supporting organization associations. We launched our forum with an opening ceremony. We invited the captains of Barbados, private sector officials, all the conference attendees. We are happy to take that occasion of the opening ceremony to honor our own Bernadette Lewis for her contribution to the internet governance of the region, having hosted the first forum on internet governance. And we also presented an award to Barbadian, Mr. Alanetic, who actually developed the world's first search engine. This may not be a widely known fact, but Alanetic from Barbados developed a search engine called Archie, which predates the Yahoos and Google, etc. And actually, since then, since he received that award in Barbados, in June, he also received a global award from the Internet Society itself, was inducted into the Internet Hall of Fame for that same contribution to Internet development. Following the opening ceremony, we had 2 days of vibrant discussions around the internet ecosystem, cybersecurity, digital economy, internet activism, etc. Internet law. We had very stimulating presentations from people like the Director of Public Prosecutions, or representatives here that spoke earlier, like Albert Daniels, who's now walking in, Bernard Osepa, regional representative for the Internet Society, Devon Swift, same, but yes, he also gave presentations. We had about 80 participants in the room, and the online participation actually ranked. I think there were about 3,000, including persons outside of Barbados who have followed the discussion. We had a social event, of course, that's to allow for some networking and getting to know participants a bit more. And partners and sponsors included the Internet Society, the Government of Barbados. We actually went through the process of receiving approval in the Cabinet of Barbados to be an official partner for the ICT. Out of that conference, we had 12 recommendations surrounding the topics that were discussed, including the need for curriculum reform in schools, adding IT issues, particularly for those students that information technology. We felt that students studying information technology should have a basic idea of how the internet works and some of the organizations that make it work. We have students, for example, operating the cameras. So, of course, operating on a low budget, one of the ways we got is to have students, give them a small stipend to operate the cameras and the live streaming and all of that. And some of them were students of information technology and heard for the first time about IPv6, so the ICANN, internet ecosystem, DNSSEC, those kinds of things. And we feel that, the discussion raised the awareness of these issues, having studied information technology, and they were in a better position. These are just a few sample photos, and we have the VP presenting. We also have in that frame, a very popular local radio DJ. He was on the panel talking about internet and activism, and those 2 persons next to him are actually internet activists. And we're drawing comparisons about having the radio, for example, as a platform to see versus the internet, and what were the responsibilities of having such a forum at your disposal, to use as a channel of good and the bad. We also got very good press coverage. As you see here, the Minister Boyce, who is with us on Tuesday, speaking about cybercrime, and we also have a photo there of the award being presented to the Secretary General. Your right is a photo of the planning committee, which is chaired by Ms. Michelle Ford. She's also running a nonprofit in Barbados called No to Online Abuse and Harassment. For the Caribbean Internet Governance Forum, we actually hosted a remote hub. That was in UBI in August. Michelle Ford attended on behalf of the chapter and presented about our experience in Barbados. Initially, I thought this photo was a photo of us that we don't have, but then I realized Michelle did it. So I don't know.
She plays the other one.
At the same time.
Yeah,
But this was definitely a remote hub. It could have been an ICANN meeting or something. But so we try to follow the process where we cannot attend. If there are ample opportunities for remote participation, follow the discussion. Then I also represented the chapter at the LAC-IGF held in Panama in August, and again had the opportunity to speak about the regional perspective, some of the issues that we discovered in Barbados were concerned to our stakeholders. Interestingly, when I spoke about the government involvement and participation, there were some members who felt that, the less government were involved, then the better it was. There is that view that as government support, as governments get involved, then there's the tendency to control or want to control the outcome. That was not our experience in Barbados. However, the government definitely was a willing partner and did not seek any way to control the outcome. And And why is all of this important for us in the region? These, the IGFs give us an essential opportunity to fostering national discourse on issues relevant. But even though we are grouped together as one region, there are issues which would be relevant to you in the Bahamas, issues that are different in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, that are different in Montserrat. And it gives us an opportunity to focus in on those issues. Within the global forum, if you don't have an handle on those issues, then really you're just going to listen to attend and hear what other people have to say. And so we address the issues that are troubling us. What is wrong with my internet? And more importantly, how can we fix it? How can I fix those things that are wrong with my internet? It helps to inform policy development around issues such as the Internet of Things. Just before buying my presentation, these are issues that policymakers need to understand. What are the implications for national development? What are the implications if we don't over-regulate markets and so on? So the IGFs give us the opportunity at the national level to have these discussions on the technical level and also consider the other non-technical issues that are relevant to inform policy. It strengthens also the national voice in the regional forum. So while it is all good and well to attend the Caribbean Internet Governance Forum, if you do that without actually having a discussion nationally, what issues are relevant to you, then again you're going really to just participate, to be informed, which is good, but it is also good to be able to say these are the issues of concern to us, to the CPU, and also to foster collaboration with other member states in the Caribbean. So when you go forward now to the global idea, you have that support behind your issues, and you have that those issues are then consolidated into one voice. So it leads to better outcome for the region in terms of policy development. But just a few observations. Of course, there's a need to attract resources to help these initiatives develop. Any sort of meeting that you're hosting, of course, has costs associated with it. Technical aspects, streaming can be a very costly endeavor. But it is very important when we're having a discussion of the internet that it is open to persons who are not actually in the room. Because not everyone will be able to travel travel and make it within the room. Not everyone will be comfortable. If you're talking about being inclusive, entering a room or coming into a room to discuss policies, raise their hand, and so on, to make a contribution. So it's important that you make that online channel available. And streaming has to be a critical part of the hosting of any national event review. You need subject matter experts. We have the RNs, the LATINs, and so on that we can call on. ICANN has been tremendous in terms of presenting. Anytime we have an opportunity in Barbados and we invite Albert comes, same for ISOC and Sherlin. Of course, these organizations also have financial resources. I mentioned the IGFSA, Sporting Association, chats and puts money once you go through the process of having the IGF representation. Of course, there's private sector sponsorship with the caveat that the event must be non-commercial. And government, again, with the caveat that the government should not control discussion on the outcomes. Governments in the region also need to see it as an opportunity, as a new, the whole multi-stakeholder process as a new approach to governance. The fact is that in any endeavor, whether it's the internet or whether it's public housing or tourism or transportation, it is beneficial to have discussion and input from a number of stakeholders in the region. Sort of bottom-up approach, mentioned earlier, rather than the top-down approach where policies are set from a high, then of course there's a need for us to coordinate national IGFs as more countries come on board. We certainly would want to have them, as I pointed out, leading up to the CIGF, leading up to the land IGF, and the global IGF, wherever possible. We wouldn't want them necessarily to be clashing at the same time because it is good to have both participation and support each other as we host these events. CQ has a critical role to play in coordinating the resources. Very often, organizations like ISOC would rather channel funding, channel expertise through the CQ. CQ can coordinate those resources and consolidate issues. I know that there's been a internet governance policy handbook developed, policy framework, and that can be informed by the national discussions that come out. And of course, we need to leverage our representatives in LATNIC, ARIN, ITAN, ISOC, CQ, etc. They work for us. Even though they are paid by these organizations, they really work on our behalf. This is something that Amber always says. I think actually has to be commended. You mentioned earlier today that the growth in terms of participation in governmental advisory within ITAN has, I would say, exploded within the last 4 years, thanks to lobbying efforts. They definitely need to be commended for that. And you made the point earlier that membership is the first step. But in order to have an informed discussion, it is important for us to have that discussion nationally first and regionally. And while I focus today on the IGF, there are other processes such as the ICANN process. The Internet Society also has a number of global meetings that are open to participation online that help to inform the discussion, that help us to understand the issues better. There's also the ARIN process, and we have representatives like Dr. Wooding, who spoke earlier today, that we can tap into to help us understand the issues and help us to figure out our issues. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. I hope it has been useful and that you get the understand the need for us as a region to lobby in terms of internet policy development, to consolidate, coordinate our efforts just as we did in other areas such as climate change, so on. In order for us to have an impact globally, it is important for us to be able to consolidate our efforts. And with that,
you better.
Thank you very much, Bevel. So we heard about Barbados' own IGF, and it was mentioned in one of our presentations on Tuesday morning, actually, that we need to keep building the capacity within the Caribbean in internet governance. And our initial efforts were through the Caribbean Internet Governance Forum, and now the CTU has been working towards encouraging the establishment of national fora, because we realize that in order to make actual progress to actually achieve the objectives on the ground at the national level, you really need to have the expertise there in the individual countries. And efforts like the national IGFs would help us to involve more people and basically train more people and develop that expertise that we seek to develop. So we move on with the program. I'll invite our Secretary General to come up to the table. Okay, yes, so she will take a place in the flow of things as we continue talking about the governance of the internet. And the Secretary General will come to talk about a recent initiative to make our efforts sustainable as regards building the Caribbean capacity. The topic is the Caribbean Internet Development Foundation, and the speaker is Secretary General Bernadette Lewis. So kindly welcome her to the podium.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. The new approach for Caribbean Internet governance is actually the establishment of the Caribbean Internet Development Foundation. the core activities, these are part of a mandate given to the CTU, is to harmonize ICT policy for the sector across the region. We do a lot of capacity development, regionalized project coordination, Caribbean representation. We represent the region at international fora, and we also serve as an industry watch to try and assist our members in understanding how the technology is evolving and what the implications for policy, national policy, legislation, regulations, and the implications also, the potential of the technology to foster national development. And on the 6th of January, I don't know why that date is just stuck in my head, 2005, the CARICOM Secretariat asked the CTU to address internet governance issues on behalf of the Caribbean. And to this end, since from that time to now, the present, we have actually convened 13 Caribbean Internet Governance Fora. We've held at least four Caribbean Ministerial Internet Governance seminars to help raise the level of understanding and appreciation for Internet governance. We've had 23 Internet governance sessions in 18 Caribbean countries. We co-hosted the South School on Internet Governance in Trinidad and Tobago on one occasion. We've had 6 workshops on Internet governance, technical and policy issues. We have an online collaboration forum, things related to Internet governance, but we need to somehow stimulate more activity on that online forum. And we've also facilitated the development of a harmonized Internet governance policy framework, and this is now in its 3rd issue. Our work has resulted in the establishment of, I don't know, 18 Internet exchange point workshops. We also have 14, I believe, Caribbean Internet exchange points as a result of this work of all the outreach and education we've been doing with respective IXPs. The work in IPv6 adoption is ongoing, as well as indigenous content creation and new business models for the internet economy. These are areas in which the CTU is seeking to help develop individuals and organizations within the Caribbean. And as a result of this work, there's a greater awareness and understanding of internet governance issues across the board, a greater engagement of ICT stakeholders, and increased awareness and participation in global internet organizations and fora. And I'm speaking of the ARINs and BlackNIC, the ICANN, and so on. Because of our roadshows and the internet governance work that we've done in partnership with ARIN and ICANN and ISOC and BlackNIC, people have been exposed or made aware of their existence and the work that they do. And consequently, there's a close relationship between these organizations and other stakeholders within the Caribbean. So there's also an improvement in the critical physical internet infrastructure, and that is we're talking specifically about the IXPs that have been established and greater IPv6 awareness and adoption. Right, and this has been accomplished through the CTU Secretariat sort of intervention. And this slide attempts to show the mechanics of Caribbean internet governance. So when the CARICOM Secretariat asked us to take on board the issue of internet governance on behalf of the region, these were some of the things that we undertook. And it involved the mobilization of stakeholders, convening Caribbean IGF, the development of the policy framework, and finally, the CTU has been acting as the implementation organization for that policy framework. So we have been trying across the region to implement the tenets of the policy framework that was established by the Caribbean Internet community. And having now reached to this point, we have sort of started reviewing how we have been operating. And we've identified a number of challenges with respect to Caribbean internet governance. And the first one is really, we felt that there wasn't sufficient attention or visibility of internet governance at the national level. So we were doing our annual Caribbean Internet Governance Forum. People were attending from the countries, but how that information is communicated at the national level, there were huge gaps in that area. So often the CTU would actually have to go into the countries and try and spread the word of internet governance issues. And we have a very small staff. When we started this group, we had 4 members of staff in the Secretariat. And there's another issue that we've recognized. There was the limited reach and impact of the regional work at the national level. Also, there was a lack of capacity for organizations to benefit from the work of the CIGF and to address the national national internet governance issues. So as I said, stakeholders would participate at the level of the CIGF, but who on the ground is going to be able to follow through with the implementation, capacity building, the awareness building, and actually assisting people adopt IPv6, for example. The mechanism was absent. And then we also recognize that there was a dearth of skills and weak pathways for advocacy on an IGP. So someone from one of the countries attended the IGF, when they get back into their countries, how do they interact with their governments? How do they say, we need to do this? Who is sitting on behalf of or to advocate or to promote the things that need to be done at the national level? The disconnect, and consequently, there was a disconnect between the regional level, the work at the regional level, and what was happening on the ground in different countries. And there was also, we recognized, insufficient capacity of the persons working in the area to represent countries at international internet governance fora or to execute internet governance related activities. And so we know that IPv6, we have to adopt IPv6, but how do we get that done on the ground? And these were challenges that we recognized, along with, of course, the multiplicity of uncoordinated intervention. So many organizations came into the region, they did training here, some training there, some capacity building in whatever area, but it's uncoordinated, and consequently, you're not really seeing any meaningful growth or advance of the regional internet governance infrastructure. So this is what we are proposing. As it is now, under the PROM is the current situation of how, and this describes the mechanics of internet governance at this time. The Caribbean Telecommunications Union undertakes to convene the Caribbean Internet Governance Forum, and there are multiple stakeholders involved, but it's all happening sort of under the umbrella of the CTU. And the CTU is also responsible for coordination, mobilization, capacity building, planning, execution, and monitoring of everything. So the CTU is pretty much doing everything. We get the intellectual capacity and the ideas from the community when we host the Caribbean Internet Governance Forum, and based on what they say, the CTU has been doing everything. And we want to move from that model because the work of the CTU is expanding. I said we had, when we started out, we had 4 members of staff. We now have that, which is much more. And we have a lot of other activities that require our attention. The whole move to the CARICOM single ICT space is responsible for several aspects of the implementation of the single ICT. And we felt, and we've looked at that, and given the limitations we've just gone through, we conceptualized what would be the best way forward for Caribbean Internet governance if we are going to be effective and rapidly advance the Caribbean Internet Governance Forum. And we decided perhaps the best vehicle would be the establishment of a non-profit Caribbean Internet Development Foundation. And it will comprise of all the stakeholders. And the CTU will be just, I don't think so, just another stakeholder in the whole mix of things. So you have the CTU, the governments, the private sector, the internet organizations, all of the stakeholders participating in this foundation. And our goal is to support the development of national internet governance forum. Because the National Internet Governance Forum will serve as the implementing agency in every country of the policies, those high-level policies and other work that may be prescribed or identified at the level of the CIGF. And they will become the organizations that in each country that do the consultations, the mobilization, planning, capacity building, project execution, and monitoring. So the trust for the CTU is that we could move to this model, and the foundation will support the national IGS, and it will also enable the coordination of the many interventions from the ISOPs, the ARINs, and so on and so forth. This is how we envision it, so that we have a coordinated approach, and we will be able to see meaningful advancement, a meaningful progression in terms of the implementation or the advancement of a Caribbean Internet Governance Foundation. And I am pleased to say that we have actually registered the foundation, and we are in the process now of putting together documentation to circulate to other stakeholders, to invite them to be part of the foundation. And this, we hope, we'll start disseminating that information in the coming weeks. And with that, I thank you. And there's one more sheet, sorry. And this is an expansion of the view of what the Caribbean Internet Development Foundation would look like. And we have all the stakeholders there, of which the CTU is a stakeholder. And the work of the foundation would be, of course, to coordinate, to educate, to plan, and to assist in implementation. But some of the best laid plans for the region actually they fail at the point of implementation. And the foundation has to work to ensure that there is meaningful implementation, and the education would not be just training for the sake of training, but training with a view to do it, so that the training is very, very closely related to the activities of the projects, so that you can implement the project successfully. And with that, I end. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, SG. So we've heard so far about what the 21st century internet is developing into, and we've heard about Caribbean efforts to understand and get more involved in internet governance issues, such that we can develop the appropriate policies to ensure that in the Caribbean we know and manage properly the development of our internet, and we build our internet economy. One aspect of that, of course, relates to the infrastructure and resiliency of the infrastructure. And in this year's hurricane season, we in fact got quite significant shocks on the infrastructure. And the last speaker on this panel is going to be talking about lessons from the 2017 hurricane season. And he's representing the International Telecommunications Union, which in fact is one of the regional operators of the CTU in terms of management of ICT and telecommunications in the region. And the ITU, in fact, is very much involved in disaster management and emergency communications in the region. So we're going to hear what they think, I think what are some of the lessons that they would have learned from this year's hurricane season. And the speaker is Mr. Cleveland Thomas, a well-known colleague of ours, the ITU Caribbean representative based in the ITU
to preach to us today.
in Barbados. So kindly welcome him to the podium.
Good afternoon to you, and I expected a warmer welcome than that, so let's try again. I see Mr. Spencer in the back there, so I will be picking on you and Mr. Wilson. I have 10 minutes, but I think something can happen. First, let me thank the CTO for allowing us to spend a few moments with you and share some of our experiences within the region concerning the recent hurricanes. And I know that there are people in this room who are far more experienced or who went through that situation and probably would be better placed to make a presentation than I can. And I know I want to also recognize Minister Melford and other delegates that he left a few minutes ago, or he's coming into the room now. Minister, good morning, good afternoon to you as well. And for some reason, I don't know for you, but I don't know if it's because I am doing this presentation at this time, but this place is cold. I mean, yeah, we need to understand quickly that we're in a hot country. And yet I'm seeing women with shawl and men with scarf, and I'm blowing my hand and so forth. It doesn't make sense at all. It is too cold. It is really, 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 really too cold. Yeah? We need to do something. But no, seriously, we within the region, when we talk about climate change and so forth, much of the region really depends on climate-dependent industries, the tourism. And if there is anything that happens as far as climate change is concerned, it can affect many of us. We have reported that about 29% of the population of small island development state live on land that is less than 5 meters above sea level So that means that we are really threatened by rising waters of the sea, etc. And climate, as it were, really can be stressful to the industry, to people, to lives, because of flooding, the greenhouse impact, etc. And mostly the vulnerables are challenged. And when we see some of these things, sometimes we are forced to relocate if we have to. So we need to really take this seriously. What's happening? What has been happening over the last few years, starting in 2013? Look at some pictures here trying to capture for St. Vincent and the Grenadines just at Christmas Eve time when that storm took place. It killed more than 9 people. A number of people went missing. The population affected, a number of countries affected in the numbers. And we are talking of as the thousands in some cases. This was in 2013. In 2015, we had Tropical Storm Erica. We know because of that, again, some pictures depicting some of the devastation caused. And when we look at some of these pictures, sometimes it's easy to just look at a picture and, watch our computer or continue our work or so, but these things really affect people's lives in a significant way. We look at 2017, Tropical Storm Erica. 2015 Tropical Storm Erica again, 11 people died. You had so many people injured, many people became homeless, and it affected economies. We are talking about billions of dollars that countries have to find to kind of rebuild, restructure, evacuating people and so forth. This is not only an economy, but it is an entire life changes that take place for many countries. Again, if we look at Haiti, we have some representatives here from Haiti, Hurricane Matthew. In the case of Hurricane Matthew, Haiti being the only sea that we have within the Americas, and therefore when you have an impact of hurricane or storm or so, you can well imagine the infrastructure already weakened. There are places, there are hospitals, there were 15 hospitals, 2 damaged, local community centers damaged, trying to reach out to get help, very, very difficult. Again, the record showed over 175,000 people have to be evacuated. We are talking about homes, people missing, families affected, billions of dollars in losses, and many commitments made. And to date, unfortunately, a lot of those commitments were not honored. That was 2015. And now, when we look at this year, Hurricane Irma, Jose, Maria, affecting the Bermuda, BPI, Dominica. I mean, this one here, the ministers are here and they can tell you. We had a prime minister on live telling us what was happening, the sound that was going on outside there. Some countries, I know in Trinidad, in particular, you see borders are Trinity, because sometimes you hear hurricanes and it pass you and so forth. But look at the one to the extreme right. That was a forest, all green, gone, disappeared. It's brown now, it's wiped out. The one to the bottom left there, the forest reduced, the splinters in capital. I mean, you would think that these things were shredded by some machine or something. And this is just the wind. This is water. I have a picture there where a guy said, where a cow, I don't know if you all have seen that, cow was on top, I don't know if it's real, but a cow on top of a lamppost. How he got up there, and was still alive. That is to tell you the veracity of some of these things. We cannot take it for granted because of the implication. It's very, very, very dangerous. This has been one of the most dangerous periods we have had for the Caribbean. This slide meant to show the movement over the last 20 years. Look what the disaster has been over the last 20 years, from 1900 to now, to 2010. And we have not included up to the last 7 years or so. Yeah, moving quickly, but the impact that we have had and the disaster going through quite significant, because most of the fatalities, even though we have had 9% of the low-income countries represented by the world, 48% of the fatalities are recorded in these developing countries. That's to tell you the significance and the impact of all of this. Where and what can happen? Technology. Technology, one way or another, can perhaps help in some of these issues for us. The ITU consider emergency telecommunication to be the core element to help mitigate some of the impact on people's lives and also moving forward. The impact here on this slide, 2005, the damages, $214 billion, the highest being $364 billion of the impact. And then in the center there, the people affected in terms of millions of people affected. And when we talk about disaster, it's not only flooding and hurricane and so on. We're talking about the tornadoes, earthquake. We are talking about fires. I mean, this is a time where we have to do something differently. People killed. I mean, these are numbers here, but they represent lives. Almost 1 million people killed because of disaster. Very important slide over the last few years. This is showing that I have 5 minutes to talk quickly before the bell goes. What do we do with ICT? We do with ICT in terms of the preparedness, communication, mitigation. Technology has a part to play. What part does it play? In terms of multi-hazard, there are different types. One, you have, as I said, cyclones, the droughts, the tsunamis, and so forth. Multi-technology. We are not only talking about phones, broadcasts, and radio receivers, internet, multi-phase. We talk here about prevention, preparedness, response, and relief that can take place there. Then multi-stakeholder, all persons everywhere can get involved to help in treating with this situation. Some of the things that we do, we help with the developing procedures, policies, work with teams, emergency teams, go with institutions, with forge, partnership, and so forth to take the process forward. For us, the kind of assistance we provided is that we, you know something, when we had Burma and so forth this year, every single day, every UN head for the region met from 10 o'clock until 1 o'clock. Every day, we would meet to discuss what has happened, what has been going on. There were direct conversations with prime ministers and ministers. Minister Melfa will tell you that he was working on behalf of other islands, calling in Cleveland. We need some more phones. Can you get some satellite? VSAT. Can you get it out to this one? People were working day and night. I mean, people at the end of the day got sick because they were just working overtime, trying as best as we could. So we did what we can. Ministers, we need you to take somebody from one place to another. Can you arrange this, because we had no flights grading and so forth. But the entire region came together. And you know what is bad with all of this, with all that we were doing? In the midst of all of this, there were guys sleeping. And they were not going for food and drink and water. They're breaking into, there was a picture with a vagrant with two computers by the roadside, you know, and then you're hearing of other places where people flying in to pedophiles, looking to take children and so forth, sick people, you know. And this is why, you know, when you pray and you bind them kind of spirits to get them demons out of the place, you know, it's real bad, really bad. With all of that, people going through their trying times, their difficulties, trying to help all over the place, late hours, and you have some demons running up and down the place, you know. But we tried as much as we can. See, Demo worked with us, all institutions came together. We understand CTU, pull together a container, send them a container, businessmen, you know, the spirit of the region still at the end of the day. I have a minute again. We sent out satellite phones, we gave to all UN agencies, we had the VSAT. One of the things that we want to encourage in all of this, right, is that a number of countries have not signed on to the Tampa Convention. And that is a problem. If there's any message that we need to bring across here, is that countries need to sign on to the Tampa Convention. We have, for instance, in the region, because of the Tampa Convention, it allows you to transport and exchange a lot of technology and equipment easy without going through all the checks and so forth. We had difficulties in getting some of that across the some islands. Only 5 countries in the region have signed on, and yet we have these challenges. So we would encourage countries, if we can, please take note of that. 27 seconds, and then concluding with my remarks is to encourage you, please, collaboration, a lot of collaboration, leadership, direction, and everything else. And you know what? Thank God, what is good notwithstanding. Help us to prepare, get ourselves together. You all know I'm the Reverend of the preacher. I love the Lord, and I'm not here by myself. I thank God for the opportunity to even take it to. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Cleveland, in his usual inimitable style. Actually, this afternoon, the first session this afternoon, will explore more extensively as well this issue about Caribbean disaster preparedness, mitigation, response, and recovery. So, if you have specific questions for Cleveland, you can pose them, but I would prefer that we give priority to the IoT and the governance questions, simply because there'll be another opportunity this afternoon to deal with the disaster management forms. So we're at the point now where we can take some questions from the audience. If you would have posted questions to the keynote, we'd like to see them pop up now, but anyone from the audience, in the meantime, come to the microphone and pose a question to the panel, because here we go. No, not seeing anyone rushing to the microphones. Let's see what's up there on the keyboard. First, there is Stefano. Please explain again the point about IoT's ARPU and revenue per user being low relative to telecom service, and also Dr. Stefano, what did you say is the difference? What do you say is the difference in the business models of IoT and telecoms?
Okay. So first point, I was referring to the connectivity part, connectivity in the cellular term. So RPU, average revenue per users, is a measure of the profitability of the revenue generating capability of a user, and for traditional voice and telecom services, it varies from the country, obviously, depending on the developed market, but in general, the mentioning $10, $20, $30 per user. Whereas when it comes to IoT, usually, and again, it's difficult to generalize because IoT is a very, very, very generic term. Most services do require a relatively low amount of data being exchanged, and therefore the value of that traffic is a lot less. Some application we can put out $1 to $2. Communicates the quantity of data of the consumption, which is a relatively small amount of data. So that's the first point. Second point, what do you see the difference in the business models of IoT and in between IoT and telecom? So the point that I was trying to make, and I hope you can join again tomorrow to expand on this, is that while in traditional voice and telecoms, we do sell into our final customers, being the consumer or the businesses. In the IoT, most often, we are, when selling connectivity, providing into a complex value chain. So we're selling into a business service provider, which in turn will serve the final end user, consumer or business. Just to make an example, if the device has a SIM in it, and it's like, for example, a glucose meter reader, that device contains a connectivity element and a module, and the final service provider is the one that sells into the consumer the actual service, the good device with the glucose meter reader. So to the end user, it's transparent. Sometimes they don't even know what sort of connectivity there is behind them. That's
Okay, so to my mind then, so for the IoT, we're talking about lots of devices, each of which has a low level of traffic as compared to the normal telecoms business case, whereas you have somewhat fewer devices, but with a lot more traffic being generated, and you make your revenues from from subscription and also from usage. But the potential usage revenue from IoT is what you're saying would be relatively low, and that would be the key difference between the two.
And I'm talking about here about the connectivity part, so not the entire revenue.
Right.
So think about services like a smart meter, a traffic device that detects whether a car is parked or not,
Yes,
etc. So these type of devices tend to exchange a relatively low amount of data.
but the value of it could add significant, at least the utility of it could add significant value to some other service.
Exactly. You got it. That's a very important distinction. Again, on the glucose meter reader, the value to an end user, a diabetic, not having to go to the hospital, saves time, hassle, quality of life. That's the value and the utility, and actually what it's ready to pay for. But it's completely disconnected to the value of the time. So it's complete disconnection. That's why when we are assessing IoT policies, it's important to quantify the impact in terms of utility, of the benefits of the overall final service to the end user, and not just focus on one element of it.
Correct.
The connectivity bit.
Understood. There's another question there about 21st century internet, and perhaps we should consider the concept of a single space enabled by ICT rather than a single ICT space. If maybe we could get some comments from the panel, me and the SG on that. That might be interesting.
Yes, I certainly, I think a single space enabled by ICT, I think is a more accurate representation of what we envision. So that, I think I've given this example already, a citizen traveling across the region from Suriname to Barbados to Jamaica to Belize, they should have the same sort of experience of seamlessness, consistency of service, comparability of the prices of the services and what they are able to do using information and communication technologies. And this is also in the context of the CARICOM single market and economy. This ICT, this space is the digital platform is what we're referring to. But this is the CARICOM single ICT space was a nomenclature, was what the CARICOM heads of government put forward, and we have just maintained it. But certainly a single space enabled by ICT is a good description for what we're trying to achieve.
And if I could add something to that, in fact, when we talk about defining the single ICT space, it does talk about enabled by ICT. And ICT enables space which, whatever. So the focus in the definition is more on the benefit of it and realizing that this benefit is to be enabled by ICT. So it is congruent with what the questioner, I think, had in mind. I'll go to the floor.
I'm only commenting because I posted a question. And I'm Bridget Collins from the University of the West Indies. I really wanted to emphasize that once you have ICT in there, it is seen as a technology exercise. When the discussions really, a lot of effort is in the non-technical aspects because those have to be aligned for you to really get the benefits of finance. All of the framework has to be in place. And usually the technology part is the easier part. So I just wanted to make sure that we're clear that what we're trying to enable, technology is going to be the catalyst. Really, it's a much bigger, broader.
I think that point is taken, and it is really to enhance the functional cooperation and so on within CARICOM. Yes, you?
Yes, I wonder how many of the participants here have actually seen the vision. It's a document entitled The Vision and Roadmap for the CARICOM Single ICT Space. Well, I'm not going to count you, right? So the point of the matter is the majority of people have not. And this is always a surprise to me because as Caribbean stakeholders, there's a huge disconnect in the understanding because there's a document that describes what it is, and it speaks to the fact that it's not just about technology. The technology is one aspect of it. It refers to harmonized policies, reformed legislation, regulations, the frameworks, government, citizen, employee, all sorts of frameworks that must be established, the whole management of the space, all of those things are articulated. And then since I'm on this point of people not being aware of the existence, how many of the participants here are aware that there is a CARICOM cybersecurity and cybercrime action plan? Yes, it's not good enough, right? Because there are a whole lot of things that are happening, and the people who need to be aware and who will be affected by all of these things have no clue, right? So we have to communicate, find some way of getting that information out to the widest possible cross section of stakeholders, and I think that is a major failing.
Okay, we can involve Niva maybe answering if you could say which of the 5 countries that have signed the Tampere Convention.
Sorry.
Well, someone has asked.
Okay, from our records, we have Barbados, Dominica, Haiti, St. Lucia, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
someone wanted to speak?
Yes, Minister.
Minister?
I just really wanted to emphasize a little bit of the challenge that we're facing in terms of the percolation of the information that the Secretary General just mentioned. I have a feeling that we could learn something from the presenter yesterday that said that he learns visually. And I think as a practitioner myself of trying to move the government of Antigua and Barbuda to be a digital enabled government, there's so many different pieces to making that whole a reality that I think oftentimes it escapes a number of persons, and when you come in, you're not able to see the whole. And I think if we had some visual representation, just simple pieces that are named, where a new entrant coming in and to say, listen, what's my role in this? How am I going to be able to allow my jurisdiction to get up to speed? They'll be able to literally go from that reference table and to say, listen, I need to have this element in place. I need to have some form of network for the government to operate in. But I also need to do that, and I also need to do that. And when I've done all of this together, I also still need to think about cybersecurity. So you are, at a glance, are able to see, to be able to do an evaluation. And I think that would really help because oftentimes the documentation that we have can be a bit intimidating, Madam SG. So I think that there is a methodology that we can use to make it at a glance. And if your curiosity stimulates you to want to dig deeper, then certainly you can get into the website and dig for more information as we go along. But that would be my recommendation.
You have someone on the floor before we take more questions?
Thank you very much. A question for Bonnet and my brother from Barbados here. All the stakeholders on the internet governance board. We have some very significant stakeholders in this whole issue. For instance, enforcement, cybercrime, cyber security, and so on. Police service. We have the judiciary. It's a very significant area. We have the insurance companies and the banks and so on. So I'm thinking isn't there some sort of reason to have a very detailed stakeholder mapping?
Nigel is doing his thing.
Targeting those specific areas which we think very significant internet governance involvement of those stakeholders.
Any comments?
Right. Maybe 15 years ago, the CTU Secretariat would have interacted only with ICT practitioners. In 2004, we expanded the membership to include private sector organizations as the civil society, and we have found it necessary to reach out to non-ICT ministries. So we have done work with the Ministry of National Security. We have done programs with the judiciary. We have done work with ministries of education, with agriculture, with fisher folk, all because ICT transcends all sectors. And so the CTU has sort of broken out of the bowl of silos, but there needs to be the realization by other sectors of the significance of ICTs to them. And we heard Bevel Wooding this morning talking about the apex and the judiciary, and it was getting to that point of having apex required a lot of public awareness, of education, of demonstrating how ICTs can impact judiciary. And I agree with Dr. Spencer Thomas more work has to be done to spark the imagination of other sectors not directly associated with ICTs of their need to embrace technology to transform their activities and their operations. So
And a quick word from Rodney.
Yeah, just speaking from our experience in Barbados, as I mentioned, we had a diverse group there. We had lawyers, we had internet activists speaking on different topics. So there were persons using the internet as a platform to speak about the Barbados economy, about gender-based violence. We had psychologists on that panel speaking about the psychology of online interaction. You know, why people post these sort of really negative and nasty posts, psychology behind that, and is it gender, issues around that. Small businesses, small entrepreneurs. We didn't have a real big buy-in from the financial services and the banking community. But the challenge always is, how do you engage those persons when they hear internet? They think there are technology issues, but obviously the internet touches on every aspect of our existence. And we have made it one of our objectives to be able to reach out and engage these persons and to help them understand that the issues are broader and to get their perspective on issues that are affecting them in their particular sector. So we've been trying to engage as far as possible.
Okay, Stefano, there are two questions. One, whether the internet should not be connected as far as IoT is concerned, and the security question, and what improvements in security might have been done to reduce cyber attacks.
Yeah, first one, very good question. I've been seeing that one. Thank you while they were speaking. And I couldn't find like really. I'm still struggling with it. I think, I suppose it'd be interesting to see what the questions comes in, with sort of background and see like security and privacy issue. These are the two things that the person asking the question has in mind. So how to protect the end user, probably. Otherwise, I would have thought, why anything else happening? Why not? But I think going back to privacy and security, I think first of all, it's important that when there is a connectivity, there is a connectivity by design. Principle of privacy by design, security by design. So you think about these issues from the time the device comes out of the factory. Be thinking about the fact that this device will connect. Don't just think last minute. And what happens with the door that made it up. So how to protect the end user in that sense. So that would have been my consideration on this point.
Anything about security in IoT that you want to say about protecting from cyber attacks? Is there?
Yeah, what has been done? I think we're starting to see this to be, the headline almost every day or just every week. In the Financial Times, you read about security companies hiring or setting out bounties for hackers to break into their system and to get safer systems. So it's becoming an issue that increasingly hits the headlines. What has been done? From a government perspective, as I said, at least in Europe and the US, we're seeing cybersecurity acts, but elsewhere in the world, and I don't have a few pictures. So cybersecurity act, which kind of tell you what the industry should be doing. For example, in the case of the European Union, which is the one where I've got familiarity, which is still a draft, ICT certification schemes that are voluntary, potentially, and that would be industry-led. So it's important to mitigate risks proportionally to what the device, the risk of the device poses. So IoT is a very general acronym. So you may have, a very simple device that connects and doesn't impact, or you have a video camera of a nuclear power plant. So there has to be a risk assessment behind it. that's the key messages of those legislations. In terms of what else has been done from the industry, we have been doing our guidelines. Other associations have been doing similar efforts. I think the ecosystem is getting there, so it is important that we do not reinvent the wheel, and we also let the industry lead on that. Not because these are not important issues, but because there isn't a single silver bullet into it, and also ultimately there has got to be a risk management, risk-based approach to security.
All right, well, we could explore that a little more, I guess, tomorrow when we get into the full detail. Even there was a question there for you as to whether you think, if you could give me in 30 seconds, top three telecom sector lessons learned from the 2017 experiences with disaster management. What if you could say we need to do X, Y, and Z? Coordination, you mentioned CDMA, you mentioned the equipment and so on.
Well, firstly, I remember Ria speaking to Ria yesterday over lunch, and she mentioned her daughters not having access to the connection and the impact. That's the first thing. I think the experience is that the importance of communication, that really struck home, because to just link with families between rural areas and affected areas and so on. I mean, people were calling from all parts of the world just to know that their families were well. So the importance of technology, I think that's a great learning for me, notwithstanding you're involved every day. The second thing is that I think that most of the infrastructure, I'm not sure if there is some alternative way to keep the connection up and running, because virtually everyone was out and down. So there should be some way to keep the connection up even during these times of disaster, for improvement. And I believe also that there's a need for some earlier preparation in it all. I think in as much as we have been preparing, I think the early preparations are not sufficient.
All right. If I could get a 15-second intervention, because we are over our time, quickly.
I wanted to talk about this issue from the provider's perspective.
Oh, and remember, we do have well, maybe we could save that comment for this afternoon, because in this afternoon we have a full section on this disaster.
Sure, but it's directly relevant to the question. And it concerns the question of what are the right policies to for this region, because it is disaster prone. It talks about how critical infrastructure is, and I'll be happy to expand on this later. But governments in the region need to bear in mind that redundancy in critical infrastructure is absolutely important for the Caribbean, and that policies which don't promote strong competition rollout in infrastructure between providers is going to create problems for these countries later on when disasters strike. I've been caught with my family in a hurricane with one provider who was down, but able to make calls because I had a SIM card for another provider. And that is only possible because there are multiple networks. But if we adopt policies, and the reason I raise this from a provider perspective is because we are seeing from Jamaica down, regulator and government after government favoring policies which are designed to insulate and protect one network and to reinforce one network, and that poses a public safety, public policy risk. So getting the right policy in place is absolutely critical.
All right, thank you. I think I will leave it there and we will explore that more this afternoon. There is one other thing which you all would have to do for us, and which is on the Keybait app. They just posted a survey. It's a simple question related to the Internet Governance Foundation, the Caribbean Internet Development Foundation, I should say. The question is it a good idea? And it's A or B, right? Okay, well, we've started getting some answers as to whether it's a good idea or not. So we'll take that answer from you. I would like to ask you to help me thank the panel for their presentations and feedback. And just before we go to lunch, I'd remind you that I'd like to once again thank our sponsors, Cable and Wireless Business, the Utilities Regulation and Competition Authority of the Bahamas, ARIN, the American Registry of Internet Numbers, the Digicel Group, ICANN, INCUS, and the Internet Society. Lunch, I think, is next door again. It's 1 hour. Actually, our scheduled time to restart is 1:30. I'd ask you to try to get back here for that, and we'll get more deeply into the disaster preparedness issues. And remember, the presentations from the seminar will be posted on the CTU website at ctu.int, along with photos as well. And do complete your evaluation forms. So 1:30 back here for disaster preparedness and thank you.
Mm-mm.